In the 30 days I tracked every dollar spent living in New York City, the single largest line item was rent. As it is for most of the city's 8.4 million residents, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The financial industry's standard for affordable housing is 30% of household income. In New York City, the median rent consumes 55%. That is not a rounding error. That is nearly double the threshold that economists and housing advocates use to define a household in distress. And that figure covers housing alone, before groceries, before transportation, before the tip screen on the coffee you bought on the way to work. Research cited by multiple cost-of-living analysts finds that living here comfortably as a single person with no dependents requires $138,570 a year. That works out to $66.62 an hour. Not wealthy, not investing aggressively, comfortable, stable. That is what stable costs in New York City. Housing is where the pressure is most concentrated, and the numbers by borough make clear that this is not a Manhattan-only problem. According to the April 2025 Douglas Elliman Report, the median rent for an apartment in Manhattan is $4,500 a month. The average, pulled upward by the luxury market, is $5,348. Brooklyn's median sites at $3,600. Northwest Queens comes in at $3,550. The Bronx is the most affordable borough, averaging roughly $2,200 a month, though in Mott Haven, where new luxury construction has accelerated in recent years, rents can reach $2,814. Housing costs in New York City are 228% more expensive than the national average. The citywide apartment vacancy rate holds at 3.4%. While rents across the rest of the country declined about 1% in 2024, New York's rose more than 5%. Manhattan's median rent reached an all-time high for the second time in 3 months as of April 2025. The income picture does not offset that gap. The average annual household income in Manhattan is $96,301. In Brooklyn, it is $75,696. When median rent in Brooklyn is $3,600 a month, $43,200 a year, and the average household brings in $75,000, that leaves roughly $32,000 to cover every other cost of living: utilities, food, transportation, healthcare, childcare, savings, everything else. On the utilities side, the news is marginally better. Average basic utilities, water, electricity, and gas, cost $190 a month as of July 2025, according to apartment list data. That is actually below the national average of $207. Internet service is the exception. Monthly broadband in New York City averages $96.08, compared to a national average of $74.17, according to highspeedinternet.com. Transportation is the next major line item, and it has been moving in one direction. On January 4, 2026, the MTA raised the base subway and bus fare from $2.90 to $3. The base fare in 2015 was $2.50. Commuting round-trip 5 days a week now costs approximately $260 more per year than it did a decade ago. MTA Chair Janno Lieber framed the increase this way: because the transit fare is a fraction of the cost of owning a car, New Yorkers spend less on transportation than people in the rest of the country. That comparison is technically accurate. It does not address the trajectory. The MTA has made permanent a rolling 7-day fare cap. Once a rider taps 12 times within a 7-day period, additional rides are free, capping weekly subway and bus spending at $35. For reduced fare riders, that cap is $17.50. The Metro card, the yellow and blue swipe card that defined New York Transit for over 2 decades, was retired on December 31, 2025. Omni Tap to Pay is now the required payment method. A new Omni card costs $2 to purchase, and the fare increase is not the only new transportation cost in this city. New York's congestion pricing program launched on January 5, 2025, the first of its kind in the United States. Most passenger vehicles are charged $9 to enter Manhattan below 60th Street during peak hours, which run from 5 in the morning to 9 at night on weekdays and 9 in the morning to 9 at night on weekends. Off-peak, the toll drops by 75% to $2.25. Rideshare companies, Uber, Lyft, are charged $1.50 per trip through the zone. That surcharge is typically passed through to the passenger fare. Taxis are charged 75 cents per trip. The program is structured to increase. The toll rises to $12 in 2028 and $15 in 2031. In its first full months of operation, congestion pricing generated $56.7 million in April 2025 and $61 million in May, the highest monthly total recorded. The MTA also reported a 7% increase in subway ridership in 2025, its highest since the COVID pandemic, with 1.3 billion total trips. On food, the data divides cleanly along one variable: whether you cook at home or eat out. The Census Bureau's Household Pulse survey puts New Yorkers' average weekly grocery spending at $266, slightly below the national average of $270. That is one of the few cost categories in New York that tracks close to or below the rest of the country. Research from Top Nutrition Coaching found that New York residents save more per meal by cooking at home than residents of any other state, approximately $19.40 per meal. That gap reflects how sharply restaurant prices diverge from grocery costs in this city. A practical monthly food budget breaks down roughly as follows: $200 to $450 for a person who cooks most meals and eats out rarely, $450 to $900 for a balanced mix of cooking and occasional dining out, and $900 to $1,600 for someone who eats out frequently or shops at specialty stores. These ranges come from practitioners and financial advisors who work with New York City residents. When you do eat out, the costs add up quickly. A casual sit-down dinner at a mid-range restaurant, a neighborhood trattoria, a standard bistro runs $25 to $50 per person for an entree. A two-course meal with one drink reaches $50 to $80 before gratuity. A glass of wine costs $12 to $18. A cocktail is $14 to $20. A beer runs $7 to $12. Fine dining at a Michelin-starred restaurant runs $150 to $500 per person, particularly with a tasting menu. Street food and budget options exist. Food carts sell tacos, hot dogs, chicken over rice, and gyros for $5 to $9. A bodega sandwich is $7 to $10. A build-your-own salad at a counter spot runs $8 to $14. For visitors and residents watching their spending, these options are real, but for a 30-day period, the cumulative cost of eating in a city with restaurant worker wages that rose 17% between 2019 and 2023 from $20.09 an hour to $23.48 is felt every time you sit down. Gratuity is its own budget category now, and the data shows that consumers are pushing back. According to Toast, which processes restaurant transactions nationally, the average tip at full-service restaurants fell to a record low of 19.1% in the second quarter of 2025, the lowest figure since Toast began tracking in 2018. Yelp reviews referencing tipflation increased 399% between May 2023 and April 2024. A 2025 survey found 65% of respondents reported fatigue from frequent tip prompts, and 66% said they felt pressured by digital payment screens displaying suggested amounts. In a June 2024 Bankrate survey, 67% of adults who dined at sit-down restaurants said they always left a tip, down 8 percentage points from 3 years prior. In New York City, tip prompts appear not only at full-service restaurants, but at coffee counters, nail salons, and food delivery platforms. That last category has seen its own round of cost increases. As of 2022, the most recent verified data, service fees, delivery fees, and tips combined accounted for approximately 27.5% of the average DoorDash order value. In May 2025, the New York City Council voted to raise the cap on third-party delivery app commissions from 23% to up to 43%, provided restaurants opt into enhanced service tiers. App companies argued the change would generate more orders for restaurants. In January 2026, Instacart added a $5.99 regulatory response fee to every New York City grocery delivery order, citing a city law requiring app-based grocery couriers to earn a minimum of $21.44 per hour. Former Mayor Eric Adams had vetoed that underlying legislation. The City Council overrode his veto. The fee is now standard on every order. Entertainment costs in New York City span a wider range than the headlines suggest. The average Broadway ticket in the 2024 to 2025 season, according to the Broadway League, was $129.12. That is a $5.25 increase over 6 full years, less than $1 per year. Adjusted for inflation over the same period, the average ticket would be $150.77. Broadway pricing has not kept pace with inflation. The widely reported $900 tickets reflect specific premium seats at specific star-driven productions. Shows like the 2025 revival of Othello featuring Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal, which posted an average paid admission above $398 for its final weeks. That is an average across all seats, not a ceiling price. The industry-wide average remains $129. The 2024 to 2025 season was the highest grossing in Broadway history, generating $1.9 billion in total, gross with 14.7 million admissions. Sports tickets are less forgiving. In the 2024 to 2025 season, average Brooklyn Nets tickets cost $317. Average New York Knicks tickets were $432. For those spending carefully, the Metropolitan Museum of Art operates on a suggested admission model, asking $30 for adults but allowing New York City residents and New York State students to pay what they wish. The Museum of Modern Art charges $30 for general admission. These are meaningful options for residents trying to access culture without absorbing full tourist pricing. The distributional context behind all of these costs is direct and documented. In 2024, New York was the most unequal state in the country by Gini coefficient, according to Statista, with a score just under 0.52, the highest in the nation. Analysis by Social Explorer, published in the New York Times, found that Manhattan's income gap exceeds that of many developing countries. The top 20% of earners in New York City make at least 5.77 times as much as the bottom 20%, according to Smart Assets' 2023 city-level analysis. The Robin Hood Foundation's 2025 Poverty Tracker, drawing on Columbia University's longitudinal survey of city residents, reports median total wealth by demographic group: $320,000 for white New Yorkers, $43,100 for Asian New Yorkers, $2,800 for Black New Yorkers, and $0 for Latino New Yorkers. Not near zero. Zero. What that data describes is a city in which the experience of cost is not uniform. The question of what it takes to live in New York City is answered differently depending on which borough you are in, which block, which building, whether your apartment is rent-stabilized or market rate, whether you drive or take the subway, whether you order in or cook from scratch, and whether cooking from scratch is realistic given the hours required to afford the rent in the first place. The costs documented across 30 days of tracking are not random. They compound. The subway fare is up. The congestion toll launched and is scheduled to increase twice more. The delivery cap expanded. A new fee appeared on grocery orders. The tip prompt suggests 25%. The vacancy rate holds at 3.4%, which limits a renter's ability to negotiate, relocate, or walk away. And median rent, per the Douglas Elliman data, reached an all-time high in Manhattan as of April 2025. In 2024, New York State had the widest income gap in the country. In 2025, the MTA recorded its highest subway ridership since the pandemic. In 2026, the MetroCard ended its run, and the base fare increased. The congestion toll is on a fixed schedule to reach $15 by 2031. There is money moving through this city in substantial volume. The 2024 to 2025 Broadway season alone generated $1.9 billion. The question that 30 days of tracking makes difficult to avoid is not whether the city is generating wealth. It is how much of that wealth is being absorbed by the systems that residents are required to use every day, and how much is reaching the people who live and work here. Like and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more videos. And if you are interested in NYC real estate versus the stock market, then check out this video by clicking the one on your screen. See you in my next videos.